All right, let's talk about the Singleton design pattern. We're going to break down how, and maybe more importantly, why you would ever need to make absolutely sure that a class has one and only one instance.
So let's get right to the heart of it. Have you ever been on a project where making more than one copy of an object would just be, well, confusing, super wasteful, or flat out wrong? That's the exact problem the Singleton pattern was born to solve.
And trust me, this isn't just some abstract theoretical problem. Think about it in the real world. You wouldn't want a bunch of different logging services all trying to write to the same file, just stepping all over each other's messages, right? And you definitely don't need 5 separate objects managing your single connection to a database. In game development, having one game manager is absolutely critical to keep everything in sync. The same thing goes for a central config file or a service that talks to a physical device like a printer. In all these spots, 1 is the magic number.
So what is this thing, officially? Well, the Singleton is a creational pattern, which is just a fancy way of saying it deals with how we make objects. Its mission is super specific. First, make sure a class has only one instance, period. Second, provide one single global way for everyone to get to that instance. It's kind of like having a master key that always, no matter what, leads you to the exact same room.
Now, at first glance, building a basic Singleton seems surprisingly easy. It's almost like a simple 3-step recipe. First up, you make the constructor private. Then, you seal the class. And finally, you create a special public static property that the whole world will use to get that one and only instance.
Let's dig into the why behind those first 2 steps. That private constructor, it's your gatekeeper. It completely stops anyone outside the class from just typing new Singleton and making a new instance whenever they feel like it. And sealing the class? Think of that as your insurance policy. It prevents other classes from inheriting from your Singleton, which is a sneaky backdoor someone could use to create another instance, especially with nested classes.
And you know what? For a simple application where only one thing is happening at a time, this little recipe works like a charm. It's clean, it's simple, it gets the job done. But what happens when our world gets a little more chaotic? What happens when our app starts juggling multiple things at once?
And this is where we meet the villain of our story, multi-threading. Just imagine 2 different parts of your program, we'll call them 2 threads, and they both ask for the Singleton instance at the exact same microsecond. They both check, hey, does an instance exist yet? They both see, nope, it doesn't. And then, what do you think happens next? You get a classic race condition.
Boom, 2 instances get created. Both threads just zoomed right past the check, and each one went ahead and created its own version of the object. This completely shatters the fundamental rule of the Singleton pattern. Our simple, naive approach just failed under pressure, which means we need something way more robust.
So this exact failure sent developers on a quest to find a truly thread-safe solution. And that journey shows a really cool evolution in thinking, from pretty basic, brute force methods to a much more elegant and modern answer.
The first try was pretty straightforward. Just slap a lock around the creation code. And hey, it works. But the problem is, locks are computationally expensive. They slow down every single request for the instance, even long after it's been created. So the next step was double-check locking. Here, you add a check before the lock to speed things up. It's faster for sure, but it's also way more complex and notoriously difficult to get right. This all brings us to the modern way, using a built-in class like .NET's lazy-t, which handles all that tricky thread safety logic for you, behind the scenes, safely and efficiently.
Now, this whole problem really comes down to 2 big ideas. First, you've got lazy loading, which is what we've been trying to do. It waits to create the object until the very first time somebody asks for it. This is awesome for making your application start up faster. The alternative is eager loading. With this approach, you just create the instance right away, the second your program starts. The beauty here is that it's dead simple and automatically thread-safe because the runtime itself handles that initial creation. The catch? You might be creating a heavy, resource-intensive object that you never even end up using.
And this brings us right back to the hero of our story, lazy-t. It really does give you the best of both worlds. You get the awesome performance of lazy loading, but with guaranteed thread safety. And you don't have to write any of that complex, easy-to-mess-up locking code yourself. It is, without a doubt, the modern, clean, and recommended way to go.
Okay, time to tackle the question that comes up in pretty much every single technical interview about this topic. If you just need one of something, why not just use a static class? It's a fantastic question, and really understanding the difference is key to knowing when to use which tool.
Let's just break this down side by side.
A singleton gives you a genuine object, a real instance that lives on the heap, which is the memory space for more complex objects. A static class, on the other hand, is really just a container for methods and lives on the more temporary stack. Now, why does that matter? Well, because a singleton is a real object, it can do cool object-oriented things, like implement interfaces. You can also pass it around as a parameter into other methods. You simply cannot do that with a static class. And finally, as we've seen, a singleton gives you the flexibility of lazy initialization, whereas a static class is loaded up as soon as it's first touched.
So after all this technical talk, where does this pattern actually make a real difference? Let's look at some powerful, everyday scenarios where the singleton is often the perfect tool for the job.
We've already touched on a few of these, right? A single logging service is the classic example. Managing a pool of database connections is another huge one, where one single object has to control access to a limited resource. The same idea applies to managing your application's configuration, or an in-memory cache, or even a user's shopping cart during one session. In all of these situations, having a single, coordinated point of control isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely essential.
And that kind of brings us to our final thought. The singleton is incredibly powerful. It solves a very real, very common problem. But it's also pretty controversial. Because it gives you that global access point, it can sometimes be used as a crutch, basically acting like a global variable that makes code much harder to test and understand. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is the singleton a vital pattern for managing resources, or is it actually a dangerous tool that leads to messy, hidden dependencies? The answer, like with so many things in software, really depends on the context and how you choose to use it.